If everybody go ahead and take their seats, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, we'll go ahead and call this informal commission meeting to order on August 7th, 2023. We do have one citizen that has signed up to address the commission. Mr. Terry, yes, sir. Come on down. Come up here to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the commission. Thank you, sir.
That was quick. Good evening. My name is Terry Mixick. I live in Woodlawn. And quick background, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel with military, police, and aviation as my background. And I came in this evening to speak on Resolution 23-8-14, which is before you. And I feel it's self-explanatory. It defends not only itself, but also addresses the 4th, 5th, and 10th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. And this is why we need to reaffirm our county's commitment to the Second Amendment and make it known to the state legislatures before Governor Lee's special session on the 21st of August. Governor Lee is keeping his proposal under wraps where neither the public nor the state legislatures can review it. He says that it's different than other red flag laws. At least 3 other counties, both Putnam, Williamson, Benton, and the Tennessee GOP Executive Committee, have forwarded their disapproval of a special session. A concern is that the special session will be a rushed session, which are historically very quick. Therefore, that will not give his proposals the scrutiny they deserve. We are all concerned with the public safety, but this is a slippery slope. The governor may mean well, but he is pushing through a review and actions that could very well be affected by demonstrations and groups attempting to change the Second Amendment. There are other issues that need addressed. As an example of the dichotomy of this action is the Second Amendment is a right. Correction, the Second Amendment is a right, while driving, for example, is a privilege. DUIs are life-threatening, and they may get their license revoked, but they get to keep their car, whereas with unreasonable search and seizure, that may not be a case when it comes to weapons or anything else. And that's why the slippery slope for both Amendments 4 and 5. Because it can, once the door's cracked, it's open. We also need legislatures to address the mental state of our community. A protection order, once due process is taken, may be the best way of stopping not only the gun violence, but also other violence. It appears Judge Alita is making an attempt with her mental health initiatives, which I think took place last month. In conclusion, due process is a constitutional requirement. This session makes this resolution in front of you necessary to reinforce a previous resolution from 3 years ago when Resolution 20-3-5 was passed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Okay, we'll now move into the public hearings for zoning resolutions. Mr. Tyndall.
Good evening, County Commission. We do have one zoning case tonight and one text amendment. I'll talk about the text amendment second and go over a little detail about that since you have not seen one during this session yet. The first application tonight, CZ12 2023, is an application of Mark Deering and Chris Steffen. It's currently a split zoned 2 pieces of property, one C5 and one R1, and they're requesting to go to R2D. It's 1.4 acres. It's located within Albright Circle, which is off Bagwell Road, just north of 41A South. This is in County Commission District number 3. It's an area with residential structures on site and is cleared for future development. The applicant's statement is to change from 4 lots to 6 lots using R2D zoning for single-family 9,000 square foot lots and will make for more affordable housing. This is in the urban growth boundary, which would allow them to rezone to something greater than R1. It's important to note in the county, R3, R4, and in this case, R2D is a flexible zone. It can be single-family, or in this case, also duplexes. R3, single-family, duplexes, triplexes, or 1 quadplex, and R4 can be greater than a quadplex per property. In this case, in order to be a duplex, they have to have 12,000 square feet. They can have 9,000 for a single-family residence. Either way you slice it, this property, if it's rezoned, will allow for 6 total units, 3 duplexes or 6 single-family lots. This is Albright Circle as you enter it off Bagwell Road. You can see the dumpster in the far part of the picture there. And this is one of the houses that will be removed. The entire property is bound by Albright Circle on all the sides. Department comments. This is served by Clarksville Gas and Water for sewer. There's no sewer currently available, but it can be extended. Albright Circle will possibly require a 500-foot water main extension for these lots per East Montgomery Utility District. No other comments or concerns were received from other departments, and you can see the school system comments with their capacities listed. Applicant's estimate was 6 units. Our historical estimate would also be 6 units for this property. Important to note, without sewer, they would not be able to get close to 6 units, more likely 1 or 2, depending on the septic situation. So I'm sure the applicant will explain the intent of increasing the density is to offset the cost of running sewer to these properties. Staff does recommend approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The proposed R2D 1 and 2 family residential district is not out of character with the other development in the Sango planning area. This property is located at a node of commercial activity where density is encouraged, and adequate infrastructure will serve the site prior to any development, and no adverse environmental issues were identified. The Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Any questions for Mr. Tyndall on CZ 12-2023? Thank you, sir. Would anybody like to speak in favor of CZ 12-2023? Seeing none, would anybody like to speak against CZ 12-2023? All right. Come on back up, Mr. Tyndall.
And for the commissioners, I just call your attention to the packet. There is a drawing from the applicant showing the 6 lots there, all around 11,000 square feet. I'd also like to draw your attention to the page before that, which says public comments. We've added a disclaimer. I just want to put it out there and for here and going forward. We got a lot of comments from both the public and sometimes provided by the applicant or the engineer. A site plan such as this, we've not vetted this per our current rules. So we have that disclaimer there saying we have not vetted this. This may not have validity, but it's being provided to you because we provide everything we receive to you, public comments or provided by the engineer. All right, your next case up tonight is a zoning text change. So there's 2 ways to adjust the zoning resolution, which is the rules that govern the land uses here in Montgomery County's unincorporated area. One is to have the county commission do a joint resolution that says we support studying a certain topic and direct the planning commission director and planning commission to study and return a study with a resolution change. That should be as specific as possible. We can be very broad, but that makes it harder on us to kind of get to the intent of what the body wants. But that is one way to do it. The other way is for the planning commission to vote on adjusting or amending the county zoning resolution or the city zoning ordinance. Goes through the process and it's being brought to you. And that's what happened with this one. The Industrial Development Board brought an application to us. We had some more discussions about it, and we felt that a zoning text change was more appropriate than actually changing the zoning of the property that they were bringing forward to us. It brought to our attention that truck stops were not defined in our zoning text for the county under the zoning table. They were defined as a definition, but we never assigned them to any specific district within the county. So staff and the Planning Commission studied that, and we're returning a text amendment to you in the form of the resolution that's attached CZ01 2023. We redefined the definition of truck stop to make it clear that overnight accommodations is not hotels, but you can sleep in your truck or your vehicle on site. The county code department was, we met with them twice to go over this, both the initial time and then to go over the adjustments we had discussed jointly. We are changing the use table for truck stop, so it will be a permitted use with conditions in M1 or M2 zones. And at the same time, we looked at what's called freight transportation and truck terminal, which was at the time, currently it's permitted in C4 and C5. We felt it was appropriate to take that out of C4 and C5 as it's a much heavier industrial use than just warehousing. The conditions that we decided with the code department on truck stops would be that the minimum size of the lot should be 5 acres. The minimum distance from any residentially zoned parcel shall be 500 feet, and that also includes school sites, and it excludes ag. Let's see. I think that's about it. This does require a public hearing, Mayor, but I'll be happy to answer any questions about this here, if you have any.
Any questions for Mr. Tindall? Commissioner Fry.
Regarding the freight transportation truck terminal moving out of commercial to M1 and M2, would that also be subject to the same conditions with the 500 feet from residential?
It is not. It's currently a permitted use in M1 and M2. We're removing it from C4 and C5. So right now it's actually permitted in all 4 of those zones, and we're reducing it to just the 2. But no, it doesn't have any conditions listed. The reason we felt it was a little more intense than warehousing is truck terminal allows interchanging of truck bodies and moving the trailers around and unloading maybe flatbed loaded equipment and materials and reloading it onto other trucks, whereas warehousing is more, you back up to a loading dock, it's all handled typically inside of a building. So that's still permitted in C4 and C5. We felt that this was a needed change while we had the opportunity to look at the truck stops and truck terminals.
I guess my concern is the controversial property out at Dunlop that we're going to see at some point here that's maybe end up in one at some point. I don't really know where that's heading right now. I guess I would be concerned about how intrusive the truck terminal would be on the neighboring residential area there. That's why I was asking if there's a buffer for that.
There's just the typical setbacks with the M1 for the truck terminal required. There's no additional setbacks for a truck terminal. And there's a lot of uses in M1. Regarding that case next month, I think we've come to a compromise with the owner, and I don't know if you've spoken with him since.
Not yet.
I encourage you to do that because it may answer that question.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burkholder.
Yes, and I apologize. Could you just really briefly go over M1 and maybe give an example of a location that would be considered M1? I'm not familiar with that zoning classification.
Yeah, M1 is our manufacturing and light industrial as opposed to M2, which is more of your heavy industrial. A lot of the property owned by the IDB is M2, but M1 is going to be a lot of the support services, so more internal to the buildings. You'll have less smokestacks, less pollution, less outdoor storage in M1 than you will in M2. I mean, I can crack the book, I can show you the pages where it's at, but off the top of my head, a lot of the recent announcements have all been M2 announcements with the industrial board. M1 is more things, if you think closer toward the city, like Smokestack Road or Alfred Toon Road, where those, truck sales, tractor sales, pipe sales, those kind of things are more M1 associated.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Harper.
Thank you. Jeff, quick question. They're an M1, M2 district. They don't have the 5 acres or greater, no closer. Those are the only restrictions you added to the truck stop portion if it would be an M1, M2, right?
That is correct.
So an M1 now presently could be located next door to R1.
The condition for M1 is just for the use of it as a truck stop, not the location of the zone itself. If you're going to use it as a truck stop, you have to have 5 acres and be more than 500 feet from a residentially zoned property.
I get that. What I'm asking for, maybe I'm not clear in the question I'm asking. Let me ask it a little bit better. Basically, right now, in an M1 classification, if we're not concerning a truck stop, I could locate or rezone an M1 next to an R1 property, correct? Without a size restriction?
That's true. There are multiple conditions on several different uses as you look through the table. If it says PC or PR, it means it has additional rules to follow. If it just has the word P in the use table, that means it's permitted. So about half the things in the M1 are probably permitted on use. But the zone, we would have to look at the land use plan and say, is industrial appropriate here? And then balance out the needs of what's out there versus what the proposal is and go through the planning process for a zone change.
So essentially, you're removing it from C4, C5, putting it in M1 or M2, adding, but the only conditions, you just added 2 conditions, which is the 5 acres or greater and no closer to 500 feet to ag, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Tindall?
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Does require a public hearing since it is a text change.
Would anybody like to speak in favor of CZ 01-2023? Would anybody like to speak against CZ 01-2023? Seeing none, we'll move on to resolutions. First, we have 2381, resolution to appoint 1 member of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners to serve as a non-voting ex officio representative with the Montgomery County Sports Authority. Any discussion on 2381? Commissioner Woodruff.
Thank you, Mayor. You got to bear with me because I don't know what happened to my iPad. It went somewhere. But the resolution speaks about, I think it's July the 31st, 2023. If you go back and look at that resolution, I think we should change that to maybe August 31st, 2023 or 2024. So if you take a look at that one. And the second part of that is that I just believe that 2 members would be more appropriate in case one just can't make it for 6 months or a year. We have at least 2 people on that committee. So those are my 2 concerns with that one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, I guess just for clarification, what Commissioner Woodruff was speaking about was the first mention of the 31st of July, 2023. It's saying shall serve until July 31st, 23, and that should be 24 if we're going to do 1 year, or 25, 2 years, so on and so forth. So
Yes, sir.
will we need to amend that?
Make a clerical change in that. We'll announce it. We'll make sure the commission knows that.
Any other discussion on 2381? Seeing none, moving on to 2382, resolution to amend the budgets of various funds for fiscal year 24 in certain areas of revenues and expenditures. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir. Most all of this pertains to grant carry forwards and capital projects. The exceptions to that are, there was an increase under the county mayor's budget. As y'all well aware, we hired Dr. Andrew Kester as the Director of Continuous Improvement Because he was an existing employee, we had to increase that budget based on him being placed higher than a step one. Building and codes, $25,000 was added to replace a vehicle that was totaled. Of that $25,000, they did receive $15,143 in insurance proceeds to cover that. Under general sessions and juvenile court, that had to be adjusted for the general sessions judges. They are now to be paid equivalent to what the circuit court judges are with the 5% increase. So we had to increase those line items. And lastly, under ag extension, there was an increase in contributions based on the increase in state salaries. So we had to increase that amount by about $9,000. Also, there will be a few items you'll see in there that were highlighted in red. Some of those are just changes in the original expenditure that was presented to the Budget Committee. One exception was on that first expenditure line under county buildings. It's no new money, but money was moved out of maintenance agreements into other contracted services. That was for hiring someone to maintain the public safety training complex facility. When they pulled those funds out, it was pulled out of the wrong account.
Any discussion on 2382? Seeing none, moving on to 2383, resolution to charge off debts in the Montgomery County Clerk's Office. Any discussion on 2383? Seeing none, moving on to 2384, resolution appointing Hector Santos as Director of the Montgomery County Veteran Service Organization. And Mr. Santos is with us tonight, sitting over there next to Andrew Kester. We went through the interview process, and we had some very good candidates in there, and Mr. Santos was probably the best interview I've ever sat in, to be quite honest with you. So, any discussion on 2384? Seeing none, moving on to 2385, resolution to appropriate funding for the purpose of one wind sculpture in an amount not to exceed $7,500 using funds to bond proceeds dedicated for such purpose. Any discussion on 2385? Seeing none, moving on to 2386, resolution of Montgomery County Commission approving in the amount not to exceed $33,000 for the purchase of creating a railroad sculpture for the Montgomery County Spur Line Trail. Any discussion on 2386? Seeing none, moving on to 2387, resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board to apply Site 23B sale of proceeds to International Court Road Development. Any discussion on 2387? Seeing none, moving on to 2388, resolution relative to the proposed uranium and gallium recovery and processing facility in Clarksville, Tennessee. Any discussion on 2388? Commissioner Padro.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. What are the specifications for handling this? This is a recovery operation.
Mm-hmm.
I take it's for the production of integrated circuits or ICs.
So this is a byproduct. This is out for the zinc plant, the Nearstar zinc plant. This is more of a letter of support, and this is something that is used. It's a national security issue as well, and currently we're only able to obtain these materials from China. So we're trying to become more reliant here in America, and it's a byproduct that already exists out there, and this is a process that they can put in place to capture these materials through their process. So this is more of just a letter of support saying that.
It's just a letter of support?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it feasible to get some guidance as to how this material is going to be handled?
There are some fact sheets that we could send to you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion on 2388? Next, we have 2389, resolution to accept and appropriate funds to hire I believe this is now one, right? one school resource officer position to staff additional schools as part of 23 statewide school resource officer program grant. Any discussion on 2389? Commissioner Walker.
So is that just one resource officer? Because here it says two.
Yes, sir. The sheriff's office brought an amendment to us today to reduce it down to one. Yes, sir. Commissioner Gannon.
Yes, sir. I was just going to speak on that. My understanding is, and Chief Smith can tell me if I'm incorrect, was they had the Spanish Immersion School and then Montgomery Central were two of the ones that didn't have one. The Spanish Immersion being part of Barksdale is the one that they're taking off, and the Montgomery Central one is the one that they're requesting. Okay.
Chief Smith's nodding yes over there. Any other discussion on 2389? Seeing none, we'll move on to 23810, resolution to appropriate funds from the Sheriff's Office LESO 1033 program, reserve fund for fiscal year 2024. Any discussion on 23810? Seeing none, 23811, resolution to accept and appropriate grant funds from the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance for the purpose of tuition assistance at the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy, basic police training. Any discussion on 23811? Seeing none, moving on to 23812, resolution authorizing the Montgomery County to enter into a farm lease agreement for the purpose of maintaining certain portions of the public safety training complex. Any discussion on 23812? Seeing none, 23813, resolution to amend internal operation rules for the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners to revise signature block. Any discussion on 23813? Commissioner Burkholder.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm sponsoring this resolution, pretty straightforward. In my short time here, I've had some questions from constituents and some questions myself when a particular resolution comes up that someone may either support or oppose, and oftentimes they ask, well, who's sponsoring this resolution? And right now, it's really difficult to tell when you look at our agenda. And so I just think it would provide a lot of clarity and transparency if we would, have a signature block there. Just basically, people can read who's sponsoring the resolution. So I'd ask for your support on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gannon.
Yeah, is this just for the sponsorship block, or is this both the sponsorship, the commissioner, and the county mayor? Do we have to put names under each one of those?
My understanding that it would be all three.
All three?
I think the way it's written, it's the sponsor and the commissioner. If we read the actual wording of it, that's the intent. If we need to amend something to make it like that. I think we know who the county mayor is, but we could have you sign it as well.
Yeah, my title's on there already, I think.
I wasn't finished.
Go ahead, sir.
And, I think it's fine. I think it's a little frivolous. I think anybody could ask and find out who they are. And understand that sometimes when you're a sponsor, it's something that's coming from inside house, and we're asked to sign it as a sponsor, so it doesn't hold a lot of weight there. And as well as commissioners, a lot of times, on somebody that's already sponsored, they need a commissioner there, and they just gather commissioners that are sitting there. So even though a commissioner signed it, he's signing it to bring it to the floor and stuff. I don't have a problem with it, but if this turns into like a gotcha thing, then I'll be back and have more revise this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion on 23813? Seeing none, moving on to 23814, resolution requesting the Tennessee General Assembly preserve the fundamental right of Tennesseans to keep and bear arms. In the furtherance of this opposition, requesting that Governor Lee, the Montgomery County Legislative Delegation, the Tennessee General Assembly, and the Tennessee Attorney General take all steps possible to oppose, protest, and challenge any such legislation and that restricts or infringes upon these constitutional rights. Any discussion on 23814? Mr. Burkholder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also sponsoring this resolution as well, and I really appreciate Lieutenant Colonel Mixick for coming out and talking to us tonight. I think he did a good job of summing up the purpose behind it. Obviously, this is something that's happening at the state level, and we're just reasserting the fact that Montgomery County values Second Amendment rights, and we are wanting to make sure that the governor and our state delegation understands our opinion on this. I think the language is pretty straightforward, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to discuss it.
Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to remove this from the consent agenda, please.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Leverett.
That was my part one, to take it off the consent agenda. But the part two is, if the sponsor of this legislation would like to explain to the public what the differentiation between this particular resolution and the one that we passed in March 22, so that the public and the commission will understand what's the difference. And if they're not prepared to answer tonight, maybe they can just send it by email or either next week.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burkholder.
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. So in 2020, we passed a resolution. I wasn't here then, but the resolution was passed. I believe it passed 18-3, asserting that Montgomery County was a Second Amendment sanctuary county, is essentially how it was stated. So back then, we had something similar that was coming up at the state level, and so this is reasserting that. I'm not as familiar with the language in the previous resolution, so I will go back and reread that, and I'd be happy to give a more detailed answer. But essentially, we're reasserting that Montgomery County hasn't changed our minds on our stance on the Second Amendment.
And we can send that out to everybody if it helps as well. Commissioner Leverett.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that just like in 2020, this is a symbolic gesture. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion on 23-814? 23-815, resolution authorizing funding in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for the purchase of land in order to construct a 700 to 800 megahertz communications tower. Any discussion on 23-815? Seeing none, moving on to 23-816, resolution of the Montgomery County Commission raising the income limit of the senior tax freeze program from $42,890 to $60,000 for qualified Montgomery County citizens. Any discussion on 23-816? Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, got a question for you. Do we have any idea on the financial implication of this resolution?
At this time, no, sir.
So do we anticipate getting that before next week?
I don't know if there's any way to get that information when you're talking about income for individuals, how we're going to be able to obtain that information.
Yeah, I reached out to the county assessor's office as well as the county trustee to try to find a way to obtain that information. I don't know that we have anything that we can use to come up with that. $60,000 is about our average household income here in Montgomery County. And it's something that would probably taper into place. And this can't take place until the next tax year as well. This is something that we were looking at and we were talking about doing, but we were going to wait until after taxes already went out. So it would be easier to educate our citizens on what was going on. So it's not something I'm against. You know, I think we should look out for our senior citizens, especially the ones that don't make as much as some others, but yeah.
I appreciate Commissioner Rasnick bringing it and sponsoring the resolution. However, when I look at it, I think presently we're at 40,500 level, and there is a loss on that of revenue to the county, which is 1.5 million at present. And if we were to raise it to 60,000, there is no way to know what that loss of revenue would be. I always try to look at things from a financial aspect, and if I do not know the result of something, I really have a difficult time being supportive of it. I do want to help our seniors. I think it's very important. I'm becoming a senior closer every day, so I do appreciate that. I was looking at the last census, which our county population was 220,000 as of our last census. Our age 65 and over as regarding our last census was 10% in our county. If I do a little simple math, that gives us 22,000 people that might possibly qualify. I don't know that they would, and I don't know that we can even determine how many could even be eligible for it. So I think this is perhaps something we should look at next year, but certainly right now I couldn't support this wholeheartedly, not knowing the implications to the county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just have a point of clarification. I mean, I think we should do everything we could to help the seniors and stuff, but being so close to our average salary, I think that's interesting. We're not like Nashville or Memphis or Chattanooga to where that's a big difference between there. My point is, having talked to the executive director of Tennessee County Commissioners Association and TCSA, who goes through CTASC and everything else, it is their interpretation that we can raise between those two. We don't have to go, it's not all or nothing to 60, which I think I sent some of the verbiage out to that. And I'm just asking for a point of clarification. Can this be, if it were to be done, can it be amended to hypothetically 50 or 55 or something, or do we have to go all the way to 60? According to Tennessee County Service Association, it can be somewhere up to 60. It doesn't have to be at 60.
We can see if we can get some more clarification on it. When we reviewed it initially, it was our interpretation that it was stay where you're at or
Right.
60,000.
I'll send you the email that we gave that interpretation.
So would you send it to me too?
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Leverett.
Those are one of the issues Mr. Gannon brought up is what I was going to discuss. Is there an in-between or is it an all or nothing? Is it 42,890 or is it 60? The other question I was going to ask, I don't know if it got answered already, but how many people are currently participating in our current tax freeze program? I don't know if did we get the answer to that or not?
I believe Commissioner Rasnick has that information. We'll go down the list, though, and we'll get over to him. Commissioner Knight.
I, for one, just want to offer my support for that resolution. Each of us was elected by our constituents with the hopes that we would be able to do something to help them, and this is an opportunity to do that. So, again, I just want to offer my support for this resolution. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Padra.
Yes. I've got a serious question as how we arrived at the figure of 60,000.
The state, it was part of when the state passed the law, they put that number in there. And we'll try to get some more clarification on if it has to be that or currently what you're doing or nothing. And there are other counties that currently participate, like we already participate in a program where we're about $42,890. The way we read it originally is that it says stick with where you're at, or you can go to 60,000. It didn't say up to. I wish it had. It made it a lot easier to interpret. But we'll try to get some more clarification from the state on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Rasnick.
Yeah, just wanted to ask everybody for their support for this resolution. And just because of the cost of everything going up, especially in our county, price of houses, gas, food, it's really, these retirees are focusing on balancing their budget. So it's something that will really help them. And for the people that are in the program now, there's only 1,146. So that's less than 1% of our population that's in the program now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Shelton.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things when I decided I was going to put my name on that candidate line about a year or two ago, I said to myself, I really want this to be about taking care of the little guy. Now, that's fun campaign language, but that also means that I'm going to look at the resolution and support it 100%. There are people that are struggling every day of their lives, and any way that we can do that to make their day a little bit easier, I will sleep very well knowing that.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Prichard.
Yes, just so everybody understands, it may not necessarily be up to $60,000 for one person. Some of us senior citizens actually have two in the household who are living on Social Security, and the average Social Security right now in Montgomery County for a woman is about $1,200 a month, and for a man, it's closer to $2,000. So if you multiply that by 12 months, you're not even going to get close. So asking for up to $60,000 would mean for the household, and it's not very many. $60,000, even though it's added up as the average income in Montgomery County, the average income in Montgomery County probably is a lot higher. At least I've found it to be a lot higher than $60,000 per family because of the influx of the industry that we have. But it's not a lot. And even if you go to 50,000, it's not a lot. So think of your seniors living on Social Security, and not all of them have 401ks or investments. So when they're asking for a property tax freeze, it's because they just can't find the money anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Fry.
For the property tax freeze, the income that's currently set, where it moved from 40,500 in 2022 to 42,890 for 2023, is that the automatic adjustment that the state does? How did we get to the next level?
The number comes from the comptroller's office.
Comptroller's office?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'd just like to say that, relative to, I hear people saying about people on Social Security, that's not what this is about. They're already covered by this program, low income. This is for the people who make between $42,890 and $60,000 a year that will be swept into being eligible for this. Just about a year ago, the median income in Montgomery County, which means 50% of the people made $59,000 or less. That's 50% of the households. So you would say 50% of the seniors at least would get swept up in this. The spirit of the law is to help low-income seniors. And I think we're bringing in a lot more that, of course, they'll benefit from it, but it's a redistribution.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion on 23-816? I'll probably go ahead and pull that one from the consent agenda as well, based on the number of questions. Next, 23-817, resolution amending the budget of Montgomery County Parks and Recreation Department for a horticulturalist. I'm glad I said that word right. Any discussion on 23-817? Commissioner Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. Was this position requested during budget time?
Not during this budget. I was informed that it was requested. I don't know if it was more than a year ago or 2 years ago, or it wasn't during this time.
It wasn't this cycle.
They were planning on doing this with contract work, and they submitted it out there. Weren't happy with the bids that were received, so they're trying to attempt to bring somebody on to do the work and moving the money from the contract side. So it's no new money, just moving it from contract to personnel.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion on 23-817? Seeing none, we have 23-818, resolution to approve a settlement of pending estate claim. Any discussion on 23-818? Seeing none. Reports for approval. Commission minutes dated July 10th, 2023. The county clerk's report and notary list. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Leverett.
I'm sorry, I was looking for 18. Do we have a copy of that, or did I miss it?
No, not yet. We discussed that during the attorney-client.
Oh, sorry, I was at school orientation. Sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies. Okay.
We hope to have something there.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. We have the county mayor nominations and appointments. For county mayor nominations, we have our Building Codes Committee, Commissioner Walker Woodruff nominated to replace Ricky Ray for a 3-year term to expire August of 26. Commissioner Autumn Simmons nominated to replace Commissioner Jeremiah Walker for a 3-year term to expire August of 26. Commissioner Joe Creek nominated to replace Commissioner David Harper for a 3-year term to expire August of 26. Animal Care and Control Committee, Amy Schaefer nominated to fill an unexpired term of Tanner Shamblin with the term to expire January of 25. County Mayor appointments for the Loss Control Committee, Commissioner Ricky Ray nominated to replace Commissioner Tangi Smith for a 2-year term to expire August of 25. Commissioner Chandler nominated to replace Commissioner Lankford for a 2-year term to expire August of 25. Commissioner Gallant nominated to replace Commissioner Rasnick for a 2-year term to expire August of 25. Commissioner Walker nominated to replace Commissioner Creek for a 2-year term to expire August of 25. Next, we have our Highway Department quarterly road list. I did. Verbal reports, School Board Liaison, Commissioner John Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. School Board meeting, basically they covered three things. They have a few federal budget amendments they have to do by law. Those will probably be coming before the commission pretty soon, I would think, as a resolution, maybe if they have to. And then the main thing they did was annual evaluation in the contract of Dr. Vetter, of the superintendent. So as we know, she's been extended for another year, and we're happy to have her. So congratulations on that. And obviously they did some professional development updates. As you know, schools started back up and they're going back into session. So we're back in school and everything's starting to heat up in the Montgomery County school system. So if there any other information you need, please look at their website, cmcss.net, for any other information you may need. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have our Highway Liaison, Commissioner Lankford.
Thanks, Mayor. The Highway Commission met on July 31st. Some key points from that meeting were River Road monitoring wells have been drilled, and they'll be monitored on a regular basis to gauge movement of the road. Sango Drive was milled, topped, and striped. They're currently on their 3rd round of right-of-way maintenance. Budget's on track relative to the time of the year. They had 66 work orders submitted with 65 completed. And the highway supervisor made mention that in the future, they're going to be cleaning up some roads on the road list, so we may see some abandonment resolutions come forward.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have our Airport Liaison, Commissioner Shelton.
Thank you, Mayor. The airport has been doing very well. This past fiscal year is the 2nd best financial year the airport has had ever, second only to the year before. We've had almost 12,000 flights go in and out of CKV during that year. The fuel sales are just a little bit down. Some of that deals with some of the type of traffic and how often they're coming through, but they're still doing very well. 2nd best year ever. And the 3rd best, by the way, was about 10 years ago. So this kind of traffic is something that is becoming more of the norm for our airport. We have about 97 aircraft waiting on hangars. We've got 2 new T hangars that are about to go online. Probably by Friday, they had their re-inspection of some of the electrical that had to be done. But, all in all, the aircraft is doing very well. They're working on their next project, which is going to be their airport layout plan, which is not going to be a big change from what they've had. But we will be having our next meeting in October, and that is my report.
Thank you, sir. Reports filed. We have our airport quarterly report, fourth quarter FY23, building codes monthly reports, budget approval from Comptroller's Office, driver safety program quarterly report, financial report FY23 for the county clerk, financial report FY23, general session, circuit court, juvenile court, financial report 23, register of deeds, financial report FY23, clerk and master, chancellery court, financial report FY23 for the county trustee, financial report FY23, sheriff's office, highway department FY23 inventory list, capital projects quarterly report. For announcements, Commissioner Simmons, those are the most well-behaved advisors I think I have ever seen. And if anybody sees Commissioner Bill tomorrow, be sure to wish him a very happy birthday. He's still younger than me, so. And without objection, Commissioner Leverett, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to announce and invite all the commissioners and the public to the ribbon cutting for Brigham Park on Tuesday, September 5th at 2 p.m. We'll send an email to remind you all, but Brigham Park is about 99% completed, ahead of schedule, by the way. So, and thank you again to all the commission who supported and funded this project. We really appreciate it on behalf of the people of District 5. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the group? Without objection, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank y'all.